Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order.
Welcome to Nixa City Hall. This video is going to provide you with an overview of how the City of Nixa conducts City Council meetings. We encourage everyone to attend and participate in City Council meetings. This is part of how democracy works at the local level, listening to the perspectives of subject matter experts, city residents, and other community members helps our elected leaders make more informed decisions. Before we start the meeting, let's review some of Council's rules of order. These rules help us make sure our meetings are orderly and efficient, while protecting the ability of everyone to have an opportunity to speak. Please be respectful of the person speaking and hold your own comments until it is your turn to speak. Presenters are invited by the Council to provide information during the meeting to the Council. These are informational presentations only, and nothing will be voted on at the time of the presentation. Presenters are not time limited. There are two times when all other visitors will be able to speak to Council. The first is during the visitors section of the agenda, and the second is during any public hearing regarding an agenda item. During the visitors section, anyone may speak to Council about any topic, whereas the public hearings regarding specific agenda items allow you to make comments for Council to consider before they make a decision on that topic. Whether you wish to speak during any public hearing or the visitors section, the following rules of order will apply. 1. Only one person should speak at a time. Be respectful of the person speaking and wait to speak until it is your turn. 2. Anyone speaking must do so from the podium and speak into the microphone. 3. You must first state your name and provide your address in writing to the city clerk before beginning your comments. 4. All speakers will be given 5 minutes to make their comments to the Council. The mayor or Council may have additional questions for speakers after this 5-minute period. 5. All comments should be addressed to the mayor and Council. 6. If you have questions about existing city processes, programs, or policies, or if you need assistance from staff on any issue, please contact City Hall during normal business hours and we'll be happy to assist you or answer any questions you may have at that time. The public hearing is designed to provide the public an opportunity to provide testimony and information to the mayor and council regarding the decisions they may be considering. Keep in mind this meeting will be recorded and live streamed with video and audio. Therefore, all comments relevant to this meeting must be spoken into a microphone, otherwise video viewers will not be able to hear you. In the case of a closed session or technical difficulties, some meetings or portions of meetings may not actually be recorded or streamed. The use of cell phones during council meetings is discouraged, so please silence all devices now. Thank you for watching, and thank you for engaging with the City of Nixa. The meeting will begin shortly. Welcome to Nixa City Hall. This video is going to provide you with an overview of how the City of Nixa conducts City Council meetings. We encourage
Will the audience please rise for the presentation of the colors? Color guard, attention. Carry the colors. Color guard, forward march. Color guard, halt. Prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. Will you please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Honor guard, reform. Forward march. Color guard dismissed. Audience may sit.
Huge thank you to Boy Scout Troop 200 Honor Guard for joining us tonight and helping out earlier as well. So thank you guys so much. All right. Moving forward. So first up is the visitor section. But just want to remind everyone, if you are speaking on one of the items that is on the agenda, speak during that agenda item and not during this first open visitor section. So, first visitor.
Stephen Turner.
You don't want it that close, I promise. My name's Stephen Turner, 751 South Moppin Hollow Lane, Nixa. I live out in the county. I wanted to talk about the West Regional Lift Station that you guys are doing. I was approached via letter that you guys are wanting to do a, let's see here. You guys are wanting to borrow part of my property essentially with the acquisition of it. And where my property lies versus where you guys are putting the lift station, I don't see any reason why you need to infringe on my property in that corner to gain access to the ground. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to set some time up with somebody and talk to them about it, have a better understanding of what you guys are trying to do and why this actually makes sense. So that's my big thing. I mean, if anybody wants to kind of give me a basic rundown, that'd be great. That's you, Doug, right? Okay.
I can give you the order, yes. And what we're doing right now, obviously you've received a letter. We send those out in advance to let everybody know that's what we're doing. We're actually doing property evaluations by a third party. And then after we do that, then we would come and visit with you, talk about, you know, what we want to do, compensation for that, and discuss that with you. But at any point in time, we're more than happy to meet with you and talk to you. So we'd be happy to do that at any point.
Okay. Are you here during the week or?
My office is at 11:11, but yes, sir, I'm usually around most of the time.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to meet with you.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss it because I don't see where it
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay.
Maybe you can explain why it makes sense.
We'll try to do that. You
Okay.
bet.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. All right. We'll leave the visitors section open if anyone else wanted to speak on something that is not on the agenda. If not, we will move forward to first reading of ordinance Council Bill 2023-36.
First reading Council Bill number 2023-36, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa establishing and levying taxes on real property in the city for the 2023 tax year. Mayor and Council, this is an annual ordinance that you have to pass for us to levy and collect property taxes within the city. As you'll notice, the deadline to turn in all of the information to the county clerk is August 31st, so second reading will be at the next meeting, which is August 28th, I believe. I want to point out a couple things on the valuation sheet that was provided to you in the packet. You will notice that the valuations and then the tax levy rate itself are different than what was sent to the county headliner, or the Christian County headliner for publishing. That's due to the Board of Equalization meeting after, or finishing their meeting, concluding and sending the final evaluations after notice was sent to the paper. And then we received the pro forma, which comes from the state auditor's office, again, after notice was sent to the paper. So the actual valuation or levy rate this year is 0.2981%, which is lower than last year. And I will draw your attention to the state R&R and utility. You will notice that there is a drastic difference in the valuation. I did speak to the county clerk on that. That is the correct valuation for 2023. That is due to Grid Alliance being sold. And the whole county took a hit, not just us specifically. Of course, staff recommends approval, or we don't get to levy and collect property tax. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions? Thank you, Ms. Coffey. No other questions? I will open up the public hearing on this. Now I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right, moving on to Council Bill 2023-37.
First reading Council Bill number 2023-37, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa rezoning the real property generally located at 202 South Main Street from a single-family residential R1 district to a neighborhood commercial NC district. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Goppe.
Mayor, council, good evening. First item up for my string of items here is a rezone request. It's at 202 South Main Street, which is where the Nixa Senior Center is. They are requesting to rezone Lot 33 of the Glen Estates, excuse me, Glen Allen's later tonight, or Glen Oaks later tonight, but Glen Estates First Edition. So Lot 33 is the yellow shaded lot that they currently own. It is part of their parking lot. What was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the meeting last week was the minor subdivision to combine all of these three lots into one. So now we are just doing a cleanup of the zoning on the property. So what you're seeing is basically just rezoning that one lot, which is currently a parking lot, into neighborhood commercial, which is just an extension of the existing zoning in the area. The Nixa Senior Center does have plans to put a new parking structure on that piece of property in order to facilitate vehicles for their transportation program that they have. The way it's currently set out, they couldn't do that on a R1 lot because it has to be a residential structure. And then also they were planning to put it where a property line is. So that's basically what this is amounted to, is that we are combining their lots and rezoning this one lot so that they can continue with providing for the seniors in the area. I will mention that any future development that adds impervious surface to this site, mainly if they were to pave the southwest portion of their property, it will require them to comply with the stormwater regulations that we currently have adopted. Staff does recommend approval, and if you have any questions, I'm available.
That whole spot's already paved though, isn't it?
No, it's just gravel.
Is it? I have swore when I parked there it was paved. I could have parked in gravel, who knows? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Godby.
Thank you.
We will open up the public hearing if you'd like to speak on this. We will close the public hearing. Moving on to Council Bill 2023-38.
First reading Council Bill number 2023-38, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa rezoning the real property generally located at the 1500 block of North Owen Road from a single-family R1 district to a two-family residential R4 district. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Goppe.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, this is a rezone of roughly approximately 4 acres of an overall 24-acre site. It would be easier to show you. Just waiting for visual aids, but this will make a little more sense next month when we have the preliminary plat to show you as well, but they are planning to do a single-family subdivision on this piece of property. It is north of the bowling alley on North Owen Road, so you can see the site. It is already zoned R1 single family. They are proposing to include that little outline section along the south and east portion of the property to be R4, which would allow for duplexes to be included in their subdivision. This generally allots to a term you've hopefully have heard of from last year, but a type of transitional zoning from the highway commercial zoning to the east. If that were to develop, this would provide some type of transition to the single family zoning. This rezone is in conformance with the future land use map, as this area does allow for R4 zoning, R1, and commercial zoning all in this area. So this is approved or acceptable according to the future land use map. Again, right now this is just the zoning request. Next month we'll probably be seeing the preliminary plat for it, but a public hearing was held at the August 7th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Nobody approached the commission during this, and the commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval. Staff does recommend approval as it does conform to the future land use designation map. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Godby.
Thank you.
I will open up the public hearing if you'd like to speak on this. I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right. First reading, Council Bill 2023-39.
First reading Council Bill number 2023-39, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa approving the preliminary plat of the subdivision known as Spence Amended Addition to Glen Oaks Estates, replat of lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and Spence Addition to Glen Oaks Estates, generally located at the northwest corner of the intersection of South Gregg Road and West Glen Oaks Drive, and authorizing certain city officials to take action upon the filing of a final plat. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Coffey.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This is a piece of property that you might remember as it was annexed earlier this year. It was annexed and zoned for single family. It is currently lots 1 through 4 of the Spence Addition of the Glen Oaks Estates subdivision. They are proposing to go to 6 lots rather than 4. This is the property in question, is along South Gregg Road at the intersection of Glen Oaks Drive. This is the preliminary plat. You will notice a large sinkhole on the left side of the preliminary plat. The solid red line is the rim of the sinkhole. The dashed blue line inside is the flooding elevation according to a sinkhole evaluation that was performed in 2022. It was performed by a registered Missouri geologist that did walk the property to evaluate and also did consider historical LiDAR data and other means to perform that evaluation. This property will be served by Nixa Utilities. There is a water main on the south side of Glen Oaks Drive, and service laterals and meters will have to be extended to each lot to make it buildable. Sewer, they are proposing to run along the north side of Glen Oaks Drive and then tie into the sewer main along the east side of South Gregg Road, north of a manhole that is at the intersection, because that intersection, or the manhole at the intersection, is where the force main for the previously mentioned lift station is going to dump into. Electric is also in the area, and all these will have to be extended to the site in order to make it buildable. Lot 1, or what was Lot 1 of the Spence Addition, what was Lot 1 and 2 of the Spence Addition will now be Lot 9, and you can see that there is now a buildable portion of that lot. So therefore, any maintenance of the property that contains the sinkhole will fall on that property owner in order to maintain it. All lots do conform to city standards, that they are above the minimum single-family lot size of 6,600 square feet. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, many residents along Glen Oaks Drive and neighboring subdivisions did approach the commission to voice their concerns from a wide range of concerns, basically, to potential aesthetics of the homes that could be built there, potential loss in property value to just too many people going down Glen Oaks Drive. I'm sure a lot of those residents I do see here tonight. There was also concern about another sinkhole being on the property. Again, this evaluation was done by a registered Missouri geologist last year. Their evaluation does conform with our standards for a sinkhole evaluation. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote 4-1 to recommend approval to the City Council. The one dissenting vote did not offer an explanation. Staff does recommend approval as the preliminary plat does conform with city standards regarding major subdivisions in the R1 zoning district. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Before any questions are asked, I did want to address one thing. As we all know, Ms. Graham lives in that area, but since she is not the developer on this property. She has nothing to gain or lose financially, so I don't feel like she's required to step down. I do feel like she's been involved with all of her neighbors and worked hard on this, and I don't see any reason, and I don't believe we have any legal reason that she does need to step down. So you can stay, Darlene. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Godby. Thank you. And I would imagine you guys want me to open up the public hearing on this one. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Please make sure to state your name, and if you don't feel comfortable stating your address, you can tell me that after you're done speaking.
Evening, Mayor. Evening, council
Evening.
members. My name is Mark Weber. I live at 1113 Glen Oaks Drive, which is lot number 3 of the Glen Edition. I've lived there for 24 years. I also own 1111 Glen Oaks, which is lot 4. It's an undeveloped lot that I've owned since the same time, 1999. My mom lives at 1115 Glen Oaks, lot number 2, and is an original owner since 1992. Our neighborhood has submitted a petition, which is part of the package that you're receiving right now, to petition the Nixa Planning Zoning Committee and you, the council members, tonight, signed by nearly all the residents of Glen Oaks Estates, encouraging the council to oppose replatting of the Spence Edition lots 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you look at the, you get a better sense of the layout of the neighborhood. If you look at page number 2, you can see that every lot is basically built on a quarter acre lot. What you see up there is basically just a small section of the neighborhood, but if you look at page 2, you'll see all 14 lots going down the street, and it is a cul-de-sac street. The homeowners would like to request these lots remain approximately 1/2 acre parcels in accordance with the aesthetic, architectural, and continuity of the existing single-family homes in the Spence Edition to Glen Oaks Estates, as well as the Glen Edition to the Glen Oaks Estates. Pardon me. The current homeowners believe that any change will seriously impact the established continuity of the neighborhood, as well as negatively impact future and current home values. This new replatting does nothing to improve or enhance our neighborhood. In fact, it unravels nearly 35 years of what we consider master planning in just a few short months. One of the things that we discovered recently, if you go to page number 5, you can see the layout of the neighborhood. That section of the street, which is where the farmhouse was, this is as of 2010, actually has physical street addresses attached to them. 1101, 1103, 1105, and 1107. My neighbor's 1109, and I'm 1111 and 1113. So the intention was always to develop these as individual half-acre parcels. That being said, we're not suggesting that we don't want the land developed as R1 single-family homes, but rather that the developer mindfully integrate the land as originally intended into the established neighborhood. I don't believe we can always ask or expect a developer to do what is best for the community or the town, or in this case, our neighborhood. That task is obviously assigned to you, the council members. Again, we're not disputing development, but can it be done in such a way that preserves the integrity of the neighborhood by incorporating lot and home sizes similar to those that are already there? Another point that was brought up, there's also concern about an additional sinkhole that was clearly visible in an earlier plat layout as far back as 1987, and as well as the recent survey. However, on this particular diagram, it doesn't exist, and it's not marked, whereas on an earlier one of this, it does exist. I worry that this additional sinkhole hasn't been properly addressed and may contain a future issue that we'll all have to deal with. Final thoughts. There's got to be a way to make this a win-win situation for the developer and for the homeowners. Just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Next,
David Montgomery, 1116 Glen Oaks Drive. Good evening. My wife and I moved to Nixa about 2.5 years ago. We didn't choose our new home because of the community or its amenities. In fact, the home we bought wasn't even our favorite. We knew we wanted to live outside of Springfield, but east, west, north, or south didn't really matter to us. The primary reason we bought our home on Glen Oaks Drive was because of the setting. My wife wanted to live in the country. I wanted to live a little closer to town. When we turned onto Glen Oaks Drive for the very first time, of course, we saw the old farmhouse on the right-hand side, the property that we're discussing tonight. And although the entrance was not ideal, we knew right away that this country lane could possibly meet both of our desires. We loved the setting so much, we bought a 30-year-old house with plenty of deferred maintenance, more than we ever imagined. And we've grown to love our community, and we've grown to love our money pit of a home. The subdivision was platted in the mid to late 80s, I'm not sure on the exact date. The Glen Addition and the Spence Addition were platted simultaneously to make up Glen Oaks Estates. I think I'm correct on that. The Spence Addition was made up of lots 1 through 4 on the north side of the street and also lots 5 through 8 on the south side of the street, virtually identical half-acre lots. The Glen Addition was made up of the rest of the lots in the Glen Oaks Estates subdivision. I would have to defer to others who have been here longer as to why it was platted that way. Don't know. The owners of lots 1 through 4 who occupied the home I referenced earlier had nothing to gain by allowing their land to become part of Glen Oaks Estates. However, they agreed to become part of that new subdivision, I believe, to protect their neighbors from this very action, from this proposed plat. I was not here in the 80s. I don't know the condition of that old farmhouse at that time. I do know that the property was in rough shape when we bought our home. I believe the only reason these 4 lots, and we talked about it in planning and zoning, they were actually excluded from the subdivision covenants. And my thought is they were excluded because the owners did not have the ability or desire to meet the proposed requirements within the covenants, architectural-wise. Most of us have probably seen that old farmhouse. There's no way that that could have been brought up to the standards of the subdivision. So that brings me to the proposed plat. The out-of-town developer on this project bought these 4 lots almost 2 years ago. A number of weeks later, the 4 lots were put on the market for many months but never sold. Why would they do that? Well, I think they didn't do their due diligence and didn't understand what they were buying, is my opinion, an opinion only. Plan B is what we're looking at today. When it wouldn't sell as a whole tract after they bought it, they came up with Plan B to fit as many lots as they could on the buildable property, including squeezing a home on lot number 1 of the proposed replat on the rim of the sinkhole and the drainage easement, not to mention the potential of an additional issue. One question I have is what happens when lot number 1 of the proposed replat that includes the sinkhole doesn't sell and the developer moves on to other projects? On the proposed replat, these lots are allowed a 7-foot side yard setback. That means these homes are going to be 14 feet away from each other. As compared to the rest of the subdivision, it's incredible. Please do not allow this to happen. Just because it can be done, as Mark said, it doesn't mean it should be done. We're not against development of this tract of land. We just ask that you consider more than, does it meet zoning regulations? Please protect the integrity of our subdivision and what we've all invested in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. We'll leave the public hearing open if you'd like to speak on this.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Randy Bradley. My wife and I live at 1126 Vineyard Drive. We've been living there for 18 years now. The main concern I have is the sinkhole. I'm retired from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Before I bought my home, I consulted with one of the hydrogeologists in our office about this property, and we discussed at length. My big concern was the sinkhole. Well, I'd also found, looking at the USGS map that I had at the time, that there was another sinkhole on the property about midway between the east and west boundaries. And I also found that if you will go to the Christian County Assessor's website, look at their GIS map, make sure you click on the sinkhole criteria on the left, that sinkhole in the middle of the property is going to show up. Now, it could be that somebody walking over the property wouldn't realize it. I can tell you the full 17 or 18 years that we've been there, the gentleman who lived there used that area to dispose of all of his tree and brush. Every time the limb came down, he put it right in there. And it was an enormous pile. And I mean, you can check with the fire department, because they had to come and put it out when the developer set it all on fire, and they had a huge bonfire going in the middle of the property. I didn't call in on it, but somebody did. And it was really big. But that's my primary concern is, well, two things. One is that small sinkhole. If somebody goes to build a house on that thing, what happens? I can assure you it was not finished out properly. There's no way you don't pile brush into a sinkhole and expect to build on it. But the other thing is the impact on the big sinkhole on the west end. If somebody doesn't maintain it, and I know that's not going to be your responsibility, that's going to be whoever buys it. If somebody doesn't maintain it, we're going to have a real problem out there with flooding. Water does get up on our property when it really rains heavy. That water extends all the way to the north to Vineyard Drive. It's a big lake out there, but it's a really good draining sinkhole. Within 2 days, it's gone. It's just amazing. But I can tell you, the property owner who was there before, the elderly gentleman, he hired somebody to come out with a tractor and a mower that was on an elevated arm, and he mowed over it without driving over the eye of the sinkhole so he wouldn't compact it down. And as I understand, I've been told that one of the neighbors on Glen Oaks approached the developer with purchasing the sinkhole with the idea that he would maintain it because he's mowing it right now. I'm not the developer. It's one of the neighbors out there. But the developer said, no, I'm going to build on that. So I don't know if that's true, not true, what was said, or whether he was telling the truth or not. But that's the main concern I've got is what's going to happen to the neighbors out there, whether if somebody compacts that sinkhole, or if somebody builds a house on the sinkhole, it collapses more. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
I'm Diane Eisman, and I live at 1104 Glen Oaks Drive across the street from, I think is it 6, lot 6? We built our house in 1996, and at the time, the Glens owned the land, and we had seen the proposed plat from across the street, so we were under the impression that what would be built eventually across the street from us would be comparable to what the land size that we lived in and the same kind of houses that our street has now. I guess my biggest issue, because it's exactly across the street from us, is that cat-a-corner to us on the other corner, the northeast corner of Glen Oaks on the other side of Gregg Road, is a rental house. And I don't know if they don't get leases there or what, but people move in and out of there probably every 6 months. In between time, the yard is not mowed and it's tall. And I'm afraid with these small houses on these small plots of land, they're going to turn into rent houses. People being in and out, the yard's not being taken care of like our street does. And I just feel like that we've been there a long time, and we really hate to see for our house the assessment to go down because of rental houses across the street and people moving in and out. Also, the street is very narrow, and that would be 6 more driveways across the street. Looks like 3 across the street, directly across the street from me. The lady on the corner is 85 years old and not well, and she does not want to have to move. But she says that she would probably move if she these lots are plotted like they are right now. So please take that under consideration before you would allow that many houses to be built on a residential neighborhood. And just think what you would feel like if that was in your neighborhood and everybody was going to be building a lot smaller homes than what you live in. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Eisman.
My name's Richard Henderson. I live 1109 Glen Oaks Drive. My property is the one that joins this. And from living there and watching the sinkhole and how far the water gets and everything like that, it goes beyond a lot of times where those red lines are. And I know it shows the one big sinkhole, and I'm the one that has been mowing this for 20 years. Because when I moved in, it was all grown up. He never got down there to mow it, and it was just brush, and the water stood, and the mosquitoes were terrible. So I gradually started kind of cleaning it up, getting it to where mosquitoes weren't so bad. I mean, the city would come out and throw disc in the standing water, but since I've kept it mowed, the water doesn't stand near as bad. It has a chance to dry out. And I'm not sure, but I have an idea from mowing this property down there where they're possibly talking about the other sinkhole, because there is a spot that has a pretty good dip in it, but it never has fell through anymore on it. I mow it every week just to keep it cleaned up next to me because it was so grown up. And I did offer to buy where the sinkhole is. It would have gave me a full acre. You couldn't talk to the old man that lived there. He didn't want anything to do with it. So I just kept keeping it cleaned up. And as he got sick, I helped the guy across the street keep the rest of the property cleaned up. We mowed it every week. This place is getting mowed about once every 3 weeks right now. And when they come out to mow, it looks like they've mowed a hayfield. So my issue is if we're going to do it, keep it uniform to the street the way everything else does. And I don't know who's going to take care of this sinkhole when it's all said and done. But right now, it's barely meeting the minimums for the city being zoned into the city, though. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
My name is Bryce Boer, and I live at 605 Glen Oak Circle with my wife Courtney and my two stepchildren Audrey and Hunter. I think it's important to recognize that the question on whether to approve this proposal is not just a legal question, it's a logical question. I've lived all over the United States. I've lived in Arkansas, Colorado, New Jersey, Florida, Wisconsin. I even lived in Mexico City for a few years. And Glen Oaks is my favorite neighborhood by far. We are unlike any neighborhood that I've ever lived in. We are essentially one lane, one way in, one way out, and we like it that way. It's why we chose to live in this neighborhood. Traffic is minimal, especially at the front of our street. That makes it safe for our kids to ride scooters or bikes without the dangers of a high-traffic through street. Adding 6 driveways in close proximity to each other is going to increase the traffic, especially at the entrance, causing congestion and making it less safe. Is this a logical proposal? We are also all homeowners in Glen Oaks. As stated in a previous hearing, we don't have any rental properties currently in Glen Oaks Estates. Would it be reasonable to place a 6-unit apartment complex on this property? Would it be reasonable to place 3 duplexes on this property? No, it wouldn't, because it doesn't fit the neighborhood. While the proposed plat is for single-family homes, I don't think there's a person in this room that would argue they won't eventually be rental properties. So ask yourself, is it logical to place 6 would-be rental properties in the beginning of a neighborhood that currently holds 0? There's also been a lot of discussion over whether the covenants of Glen Oaks applies to this property. Whether or not that's true remains to be seen. However, every house that currently exists in this neighborhood must abide by these covenants. So these covenants are not merely a list of restrictions, but they're a list of descriptions of what every other house looks like. Every house is over 1,700 square feet. Every house has at least a 2-car garage with a driveway to match. Every house is 20 feet from a side property line and 40 feet from the front property line. Each home is a little bit different, but each home has enough similar characteristics to make it feel a part of our cohesive neighborhood. So again, I would ask, is it logical to put 6 houses that don't even come close to matching this description directly across the street from homes that do? So in conclusion, the proposed plat would completely change the dynamics, the aesthetics, the value of our neighborhood, and the homes that are in it. The final important question you should ask yourself is, if you lived in this neighborhood, would you vote to approve this proposal? My guess is you would not. Why? Because it doesn't make logical sense to develop it this way. If the proposal was to build 2 homes on this property of roughly equal size and appearance to the other homes in this neighborhood, we likely wouldn't be having this discussion. That is our reasonable expectation for this property. So I would ask that you deny this proposal based on logic and common sense and allow the aesthetic appeal of our neighborhood to remain intact. Thank you.
Thank you. I will leave the public hearing open if anyone else would like to speak on this.
Good afternoon. My name is Becky Clark, and I live at 1117 Glen Oaks Drive. And I've lived there since 1999. I'm currently a single mom living there, but I've raised 4 children on that street. And you never had to worry about the neighbors, the children getting hurt riding their bikes, skating, whatever, because it was a 1-lane road in and out. We have a very unique relationship as neighbors. And my concern is that if you do what has been proposed with these lots, that it's going to devalue my property. And I've put as much into my property as I spent on it. And at this point in my life, I'm not looking for a devaluation. And I don't think that's fair to me or to the other homeowners, just because the person that bought this property didn't, like they said, do his due diligence. I would have been asking questions like that. I would have been very reluctant to buy property that had a sinkhole on it, not knowing what could happen in the future. So I'm just asking that you would consider making the lots uniform like the rest of the homes on the street. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I will leave the public hearing open if anyone else would like to speak.
Hi, my name is Evan Palmer, and I live at 1121 Glen Oaks. A lot of people, my neighbors, have said, it kind of was on my notes here, so a couple things I wanted to bring up about this is, this is a very unique situation. I mean, it seems like to me, maybe it's not, I don't know, but where you have this land that was thought of since 1987 to be 4 lots. It's been said many times, it's just shown that way, and then all of a sudden it changes, and then we're told too by planning and zoning that it never was plotted that way. And it's something where it just doesn't seem very fair, very confusing on our part for this. But is there a precedence for this where you have this county area that's on a city street, and across the street are some rules, and on the other side of the street are different rules. I mean, it probably has happened, but, you know, if they build these houses, you know, they're going to look very different than what's on the street. Obviously, they can get some square footage, but they'll look very weird. There's other parts of the city, too, we kind of question, too, about why these houses pop up and they look really, really different, and we don't want that to happen with us. You know, I've lived there since since 2001. I've been a taxpayer here in Nixa since 1994, and, you know, I just don't see where our advocates are with this either, because, you know, we're kind of having to do this on ourselves, as all people are just residents there. And, you know, the city's doing this for the developer, and we feel like, you know, where's our advocate for this? So it's been very confusing the last couple weeks, because it went from 4 to now the six plats there. It was said to be a replat of the 4, and then all of a sudden it wasn't a replat. So I think it was where people thought it was 4. It needs to stay 4. It goes along with the street. And I just really feel for the property owners right across that this happened. And some person said too, I don't think any of us would want this to be across from them if that was their house. So again, with the traffic that's going to happen, and this nice, quiet street will definitely be changed. And you know, we don't want that. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
I know my name's Richard Henderson. I know in the original planning and zoning back in February, they talked like to get the street to comply with the city, they would have to make it wider on that.
Mr. Galvin.
Is that still the plan, to meet the 27-foot?
It's not required. What they did do was dedicate additional right-of-way on the north side of Glen Oaks Drive, 10 feet of additional right-of-way, so therefore the overall corridor is only going to be 40 feet, which is still 10 feet shy of local standards of 50 feet. So if there were to be any need to widen the road, we would then, the city would go out and acquire the additional 10 feet from the south side in order to make that a city road with curb and gutter along it. But no, the road is considered a public road. It does conform with our code to be a public road because you're eligible to pass a emergency vehicle along that road. So therefore, it's considered public, which is why they are able to access it, just like all the other property owners there.
So on this north side where these new houses are, it's not going to be set back farther, the road's not on that, or is it going to set back north?
There will be no road work at this time.
No road work at this time. So, because what I was worried about, these smaller houses with people parking on the street and there's not room to park on the street. That's all I was wondering. I was just wanting to make sure they weren't going to widen just that part.
Right.
Just that where these new houses are.
Yeah, it's possible that we could potentially put a sign up that says no parking on that side or on the road at all.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, I think there was something also in their covenants about parking on the street. I don't remember where I saw that. You can definitely tell it's an older covenant though, because it says that no outside toilets shall be permitted. Darlene, do you have an outside toilet?
No, but the Bill got one.
Oh, he probably did.
The Bill house is still there.
Oh.
Jeff Doherty at 1108 Glen Oaks Drive. I just have a couple of questions. Looking at the picture up there, or looking even on the hard copy, I can't tell how deep, I can't see the depth of those lots. Can you tell me what the, how many feet deep they are?
I believe they are 140 feet.
Yeah. 140?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Because I just couldn't tell. My other concern is the size of the road, because right now with the homes that are built on one side, the mailboxes are also on that side. So anytime there's traffic meeting each other, if those houses are built, that's going to be their front yard that we have to go through in order to miss each other when we meet traffic. So it is going to cause some congestion. My other concern is at the planning and zoning meeting, I asked what were the minimum requirements for a home to be built on those lots. And they said, well, there won't be a minimum requirement. So I have talked to the contractor that's wanting to do this on the telephone a few days ago, and he said that he plans on putting in 1,700 square foot and bigger homes. So that would be beneficial, but there's nothing to hold him to that, especially on the smaller piece of property that I don't think you can put a 1,700 square foot house there close to the sinkhole because of the rim and the flooding. So I think you're going to have to probably put a smaller home like a 1,200 square foot house that, again, really isn't going to be consistent with the neighborhood. My other question to planning and zoning was, would the covenants and restrictions of the area, would they apply to these new homes? The answer was no. So I would like council to clarify that, just so that all of my neighbors know and I know kind of what to expect on that. And of course, it goes without saying, you can see, even though several people probably won't speak, it's the whole neighborhood that's here. I don't think there's one person in the neighborhood as a homeowner that didn't sign the petition. So there's a real concern. My other question would be, for this project as well as other projects, that we would look at the attraction of economic development just in general. If we start chopping up Nixa and we start, only being interested in bringing in multi-level family projects and rental projects, and because we're concerned or we're in fear because the price of housing, Nixa's not going to look the same. And when businesses look at Nixa and when people look at Nixa as a possible home, they're not going to look at Nixa the way they've looked at Nixa. I've been here since 1991. My wife and I moved to the area when there was about 3,000 people here. And this has always been a wonderful, progressive, well thought out, well designed place to live, as well as good people with good values and so on and so forth. It's probably why you guys live here. And so I just want to say that I'd love to see us keep the integrity of the properties, and keep the integrity of the whole personality of Nixa, Missouri. Thank you.
And Mr. Doherty, to answer your question as far as your covenants, so the city we don't police HOA covenants. However, we do have our own code enforcement, and looking at your guys' covenants, it covers a lot of the things that we already have in place for code enforcement, as far as, broken down vehicles being in the front yard, grass being too tall, things like that. So to try and answer your question, instead of it going to the HOA where someone goes out and gives them a warning, code enforcement from the city would go out and start the abatement process. And if, say, weeds are getting tall and, you're losing a kid in your yard, and we would go out and mow it and then bill them for that. And So it's similar, but it's usually, for the majority of the time, it's complaint-based unless it's something on a main thoroughfare that we happen to see just driving by it and there's a weed taller than the house. Chances are we're going to go do something about that. But no, we don't enforce HOA covenants. All right, I'll leave the public hearing open. And just so you all are aware, we'll do another reading of this at the next council meeting. You'll also have a chance to speak there, so if you find something else between now and then you want to talk about. And also feel free to reach out to any of council members or myself if you have any questions or anything. Go for it.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Palmer. I live at 1121 Glen Oaks. Lived there for 22 years. And like everyone else, the reason I moved on this street, I used to live off of Main Street in Detroit Theater, where the covenants were not enforced, and is now the front of it is now, I think, Darlene, do you know, are they like strip malls there in front? And when we didn't have a lot of money years ago, my husband's a teacher, and we did the minimum. We did the 1,700 square foot house, but we did it right, and we take pride in our street, and we take pride in our house. And I don't see, like they say logically, why you guys would even allow that. I'd be willing to work with the developers. I know on our street, we have a realtor, we have a builder, we have an alderman, we have plenty of people that, if they want to make money, you know, we'd work with them to make money. And I think there's a way to make, it's a win-win. Why not look at it as a way that they can make money and that we can get what we want too? That we just, you know, we all want to make money on our houses too. And there's a way, you know, so maybe if they want to work together and work with, you know, like I said, we have a realtor, we have a builder, find out a way, instead of building 6 small houses, build 2 really nice houses, you know, that you know, someone's going to come spend more money on. And when you spoke of the street, I would ask this week before next week that everybody drives down our street, and so then you guys know, because you can't pass. I'm sorry, but I've hit mailboxes on our street because if someone is if someone is getting their yard fertilized, they don't park in the person's driveway, they park on our street. So then I have to go around them, and to go around them, I mean, I would almost hit somebody's, well, I didn't knock her, Ann. I didn't knock your mailbox down. I just dinged it. But there is no, I mean, that's why I just asked before next week then, so that we're all on the same page. You just drive down there and see, so then you know what we're talking about. Like my husband said, I don't think there's a precedence in this, that I don't know that, is there another street in Nixa that is just a street, a dead-end street, and had their covenants, and just because, like I asked last week, the only thing I guess that we did wrong, I guess I didn't come to the meeting in March. If we would have known in March when you guys annexed it into the city, or whenever it got annexed, I don't know when that was, but when it got annexed, we would have went hard against it not getting annexed. Because, like you say, like other people have said, if you come down Gregg, and it was a farmhouse, their entrance was off of Gregg Road. So even though it didn't look like the best house, but they had, you know, they had grass and they had chickens and they had all that because it was county. But it wasn't, you know, you didn't have to, it didn't look like it was part of our street. And we didn't have to deal with all the, like what they say, all the houses and driveways coming out of there. And now when people drive on our street, I mean, I don't know, I think it's considered a subdivision. I don't know where the rules are with why they say it's not a subdivision. I don't understand that. Do you? Like, where did it get changed that it's not our subdivision? I don't know that.
How is it not in your subdivision? Is
Yeah,
that the
just
question?
because it became city?
So, the land was platted as part of the Spence addition to the Glen Oaks subdivision, but it was not included in your subdivision restrictions.
Okay.
So that's the.
Was there a way then, is there a way to get it into our restrictions?
You'd have to update your restrictions and have the current property owner allow that.
Okay. And then you said about widening the street. Another thing I would like people to look at is if they don't widen the street, or if they do widen the street, then people will park on the street. Then it's just going to look like if people would also drive down Verna, there's 1245 Verna. If everybody would drive down there or just bring it up on your Google Maps, you can see right now, whoever lives there has an old car parked on the side that's rusty, has 5 trash cans out in the front. You can all bring it up on your phone right now and Google it. It's still like that. And another house on Verna is real high grass. And I've never called it in just because I haven't lived there, but I can assure you that if somebody on my street, that they will be getting a call every day if this happens on my street. I don't know if other people want to put up with it, fine, but I won't put up with it. And I will stay on it until it gets made right. And I don't want, okay. But anyway, played me off with some music.
Thank you. I'll open it up for council here in a minute, yes.
I just have one quick clarification question. Do we know how far apart the driveways are going to be, just so I can get a visual?
We wouldn't, I don't think we'd know that until we get the preliminary plat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Mhm. All right, I will leave the public hearing open.
I'm Denny Eisman, and I live at 1104 Glen Oaks Drive. Wasn't here, well, I was here last week, but not in February or March. Do you guys not like Darlene?
Oh, I love Darlene.
She's my neighbor, and she's good, and you're going to ruin her just as you're, they're going to ruin her just as they're ruining me and Carolyn and everyone else. I live directly across from where all that's going in. And Diane, my wife, said last week that we'd rather see Dennis, who was the old man that lived there, and his sister. We wish they were still living there than to have what's proposed or what may go in. Did you say 1,700 square feet? I don't know who said that, but per house? How in the world? There's 6. You couldn't have more than 3 houses, and will they be brick or we don't know, do we?
Not sure.
But we cannot, and it's is it 2.2 acres or something like that? I don't know the exact.
Yeah, they'd be 0.19 acres per lot.
0.19?
Which is about 8,400 square feet.
8,400?
Mm-hmm.
How in the world? No, and if those turn into rent houses, there is no way those last 2 families will want to rent, knowing that there's a sinkhole right there to the west side of them. Several things I want to say, and I kind of go blank, but
that usually happens when you get the microphone. It's all right. You got time.
But we have lived there. Diane said we've lived there since '96, which makes 26. I think maybe going on 27 years, December 1st. Because I remember when we pulled in there and started moving in, and carrying things into the house. I remember carrying our Christmas tree in, and we put that thing up the next day or something. But why would anyone? Why would you allow that? It's just going to ruin. We built that. We had our house built, and why would anyone want to hurt us, hurt me, hurt Carolyn, hurt Darlene, hurt any of the neighbors? Why would you want to do that to your city and your town? Don't we want to continue to keep our street and our homes nice, and don't we want them to be of the same square footage as they are right now? I mean, I feel like it's gonna hurt us on the east end more than those down at the cul-de-sac, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's going to, I mean, we're gonna lose money on our homes. And I don't think there's one family or one individual that is going for that or looking for that to happen. I mean, no one bought those houses. We all bought those houses to live in. I mean, this is the fourth place we've lived since we've been in Nixa, and the second house that we built. We lived in a rent house, and we lived in a townhouse back in, many years ago. It was called Arnold Thompson Apartments, which was just east of the post office on the same side of the street, just up the hill there. Why? I don't know what the developers are thinking. Are they just he's gonna sell these lots and just move on out and not give a rip after he leaves, or what? But anyway, I don't always get up to the Glen Oaks Circle. I'm the second house on the left, and I don't usually get up to the Glen Oaks Circle. But I was up there a while back, and I just noticed how clean, well kept, and how nice they are. And they kind of put my house to shame. And some said I had a nice home, but I do have a nice home, but it's kind of gotten away from me a little bit as far as the landscaping is concerned. But anyway, I know there's other things I wanted to say, but when I get up here, I forget where they are. But anyway, I just wanted to make that comment, and maybe next Monday I'll have something.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It's one other thing. If Joe moves into one of those rent houses and Bob moves in next to him, they're going to be able to just raise their windows up and say, "Hi, Joe. Hi, Bob," and just reach out there without going out. If they're going to be that close to each other,
Thank you, Mr. Eisman. All right. We will leave the public hearing open. All right. We will close the public hearing. And before we move on, I just want to thank you all for coming here. We don't know what we don't know. So thank you very much for coming and speaking. And now it's Darlene's turn. So anything from council?
Yes. I didn't know I'd get a chance to talk. I was expecting to be in the other room. I've lived in this neighborhood since 2011, and I love the neighborhood. I love my street. I love the people on it. We do lots of fun things together. We boo each other at Halloween. We do Easter egg things on Easter.
You hit each other's mailboxes?
Well, now I know who got Carolyn's mailbox. The street is narrow, but you can pass, and it's kind of good because it makes you slow down. If you want to stay on the road and you pass somebody, you go really slowly. I watched this thing all takes place because it is right across the street from my house. So when the older gentleman and his sister were put in a nursing home, I wondered what was going to happen to it. So I checked with the city and I checked with the county, and they said it was in the county. It was originally made as a subdivision by Becky and Buddy Glenn. They put the 4 other lots as part of the subdivision to make it cohesive. The older gentleman didn't choose to go in with the neighborhood at that time, probably because he had chickens and other animals on the property, and our covenants don't allow that. And also, he would add hook into sewer and stuff, and he just didn't have the money to do it. So at any rate, when it came time for this to come into it, I went over and I said, okay, if somebody wants to build on this, they're going to have to annex into the city because they're going to have to put the driveways onto our street. So when it came for annexation, I thought, this is great. We're going to get 3 nice houses. You can't build on basically 2 of those. But 3 nice houses across the street comparable to what we already have in the neighborhood. And in the packet, you have pictures of all the houses in the neighborhood, so you know kind of what they look like. It's kind of disconcerting for all of us to see the possibility of 5 smaller houses on shotgun-style lanes to go in. Our ordinances say that they have to be 1,700 square feet, And if it's on a one level, if it's more than one level, it has to be at least 1,200 square feet on the bottom. And I don't know what it is, according to what Scott told us, they can build whatever they want to on these lots. It doesn't just affect our neighborhood, it affects the people behind us as well. We have two gentlemen there that I've talked to, because their houses are right behind those 4 lots. There's a fence there now, it's all built up and stuff, but it's directly going to affect them. We are concerned about the sinkhole and the possibility of a second one. We are not opposed, nobody in our neighborhood is opposed to building on those lots. They would just like to see 3 nice houses possibly go on those lots. If it's a matter of economics, we know how much our houses are worth. I mean, we have 2 realtors, and my daughter's a realtor too, and she told me basically what my house would sell for now at a low rate. And even at a low rate, if you build 3 houses, you'd get over $1 million for those 3 houses. And you'd only have to you don't have to dig 3 holes for basements, 3 driveways, 3 sewer systems hook up, and all your utility hookups. If you do 6 houses, or 5 even there, you're not going to sell them for what ours are basically worth at this point. You're going to have to dig 5 holes, 5 driveways, all your utilities, and all your sewer system hookups, which is going to cost you more to do than if you just put the 3 on that property. I'm concerned about the fact of 5 driveways being across the street at the front of our subdivision. In the morning, if you try to get out of there to go when school's in session, it is not an easy thing to do. It's very traffic laden because we have SB up here, we have Matthews right behind my house, and we have a high school right behind that. Lots and lots of traffic in early morning and late afternoon. We have a lot of people who like to run down our street. They like to walk their kids down our street. They like to walk their dogs down our street because it's a cul-de-sac. It's a one-way in, one-way out, and it's very quiet. You don't have speeders on it. People don't park in the street. We have long driveways. Everybody parks in their driveway. Most people put their cars in the garage at night. We don't know. I think part of the problem is the unknown of what could be rather than what should be. We'd like to keep it continuous with everything that's in the neighborhood. And if you look at the neighborhoods in Nixa, you're not going to find anything that I know of where you're going to have a nice established neighborhood and then you have 6 little units stuck right in the center of it, right at the very beginning of your neighborhood. We don't even have a sign in our neighborhood that tells what the neighborhood is. Becky Glenn was at the Planning and Zoning, and she apologized to all of us. She said, we really tried hard to make sure something like this would not happen, that this neighborhood would all stay as one big unit, even when the gentleman passed away. He's not passed away, he's in nursing, I'm sorry. It's just the fact that we want to see it kept, we want to see it nice, not saying that smaller homes wouldn't be nice, but they would not fit into this particular neighborhood itself. If it was on the other side of Glen Oaks, yeah, because they're all smaller houses, and they all fit in that neighborhood, they were platted that way. This was never platted that way, as to put a number of smaller units on there. And I think that's the major thing on this, is that we just want to see it not just for our benefit, but everybody's benefit. Next, you drive down that street, you go, oh, isn't that a nice house? Because the houses on Vineyard are comparable to the houses on our street, too. So you see those first, you see Verna Lane, you see Vineyard, then you see ours, and you've got 2 rows of houses that are basically all the same kind of units as far as yard size, as far as house size, and you're going to stick 5 little spots there with a pretty big giant sinkhole, which I discovered from talking to this gentleman, that when Price Cutter was being built, they took all the dirt from that and dumped it in that sinkhole, so it's not as deep as it used to be. I can't imagine what it was like before. And it does fill up quite a bit with water. We are concerned about the possibility of a second sinkhole, which basically goes up almost to, like I'm at lot, well, I can't see it on that one. It goes almost up to Iceman's lot. So basically, lot 1 is the big sinkhole, lot 2 is across from my house. It goes almost to the end, almost into lot 3. Another lot that's possibly not buildable. So who's going to buy those kind of lots? We're concerned about that. Who wants to have to maintain that? It's an enigma right now, and we just want to see what's going to be best for it. I would like to see 2 to 3 bigger houses put on there. They would sell immediately, and those people would love our neighborhood. The houses would be kept up, and it would be contiguous with everything around us. So, I mean, again, stop and think, if this was in your neighborhood, is this what you'd want to see in your neighborhood? Not, even if I wasn't living there, I wouldn't want to see this in my neighborhood. What it says you can do doesn't mean it's what you should do. And I think that's a major point that we need to consider. What should you do in a situation like this where you're presented with this kind of a choice? That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham. Anything else from council? All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody. Moving on to Council Bill 2023-40.
First reading Council Bill Number 2023-40, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending Chapter 101, Article 2, Division 2, Section 101-69 of the Nixa City Code to modify the number of members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Gobby.
Mayor, council, I'll stay seated for this one as I don't have visual aids for you. Section 101-69 requires that the Planning and Zoning Commission contain 9 citizen members. For the better part of this year, we have been operating with 7 appointed members, and this is all volunteer members, so it's very rarely that we get all appointed members to attend meetings. So the quorum number is of the entire commission, which makes it 5 commissioners are needed to have a meeting. A majority of our meetings this year have consisted of just the bare minimum 5 commissioners, so we were barely meeting quorum. We just had another commissioner resign at the last P&Z meeting, so we are down to 6 currently. This request to lower to 7 appointed members will also lower the quorum requirement down to 4, which would assist in making sure that we don't have to postpone meetings due to lack of attendance. So that is the request. Staff is recommending approval as it will assist with the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Godby. So just to give you guys a little backstory, my goal was to build a stronger Planning and Zoning Commission, ones that it's 1 meeting a month. And I wanted to build a commission that we knew they were going to be at every meeting, unless there was some crazy circumstances, but also that they would read the agenda prior to the meetings. They were well prepared. They would, like was said earlier, they would get out, go look at these properties, drive down the streets on stuff that they're voting on, just be more involved. And, it was hard with 9, it was hard to get all of the people here. And so I felt kind of the best idea, and I met with staff, was to look at dropping it down to 7 and building that stronger commission. I think we're already on our way there. We did the one who just stepped down. He'd actually been a commissioner for 19 years. Pretty impressive. I got to serve with him, and we argued a time or two. He's a good, fun guy to work with. But that's kind of where I'm at. Is I think that we can build a lot stronger commission, and that will do more research, ask good, tough questions, and present us with what we need, and definitely reasonings behind either voting no or voting yes, because we take a lot of our information comes from them, and so that is why we went down this path. Anything from council on that?
I just have a general question.
Mhm.
How is the commission picked? Or who
So-
we're voted for by the city, so who's?
Typically, I'll bring them in.
Okay.
But then ultimately, it's your guys'
Okay.
choice.
I had no idea.
You guys get to vote on that. So I do have a couple people in mind to replace that one spot. Obviously, we need to get that taken care of here pretty soon, but even with that, we'd still be at the same number we've been at for a while, so, as far as people showing up. But, yeah, I have a couple that I'm looking at right now, and so pick which one I think would be the best. And so anyone watching, if you ever would like to, if you're interested in serving on the P&Z Commission, feel free to shoot me an email.
Are there requirements for it?
You need to live in the city.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have to have availabilities on Monday nights.
And yeah, and with the first Monday of every month.
Okay, I was just curious.
So,
I didn't know.
Yep.
The more you know.
Thanks for asking. The rainbow.
Thank you.
I got you.
People think I'm crazy when I do that.
All right. We'll open up the public hearing on this, if you'd like to speak on this matter. Fair enough. We will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? Anything else from staff? Moving on to Council Bill 2023-41.
First reading Council Bill Number 2023-41, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending Chapter 20, Article 5, Division 6, Section 20-392 of the Nixa City Code for the purpose of prohibiting the operation of all-terrain vehicles on streets within the city. Presenting is City Administrator Jimmy Lyles.
Mayor, Council, in 2018, City Council elected to adopt a bill allowing the use of golf carts on city streets. During that time, when there was a lot of discussion with council about allowing uses of other vehicles such as UTVs and ATVs. At the time, council elected to not allow UTVs. They also expressed that there was a desire to not allow ATVs as well. Now, there is currently an ordinance in the books that does allow the use of ATVs on city streets when a City of Nixa permit is issued. I can tell you since that time, we've issued 0 ATV permits, but that's based on the discussions that we had back in 2018. I also honestly don't believe we had anybody ever apply for one that I'm aware of since then either, but in recent discussions, we realized that, we were reminded that this ordinance is in place. I can tell you back then, the discussion was that council didn't want them, we just wouldn't issue the permits. But honestly, and especially after speaking with Mr. Woodman, that's not the, and I completely agree, that's not the appropriate way to handle that. If council elects to not allow ATVs on a city street, then I would recommend changing the ordinance, is what you have before you tonight. Just really quickly, just for those that may not know, currently there is nothing that allows UTVs, utility vehicles, but an ATV is defined as a vehicle that is straddled by a person. So you're looking like a four-wheeler and those type of vehicles. So currently there's a provision that would allow that if a city permit was issued. So before you tonight, we have a bill that would strike out the language out of the ordinance that would not allow the use of ATVs on city streets with the city permit. Now, it would still allow the use of ATVs in 2 scenarios. One of those being a governmental entity, so technically the City of Nixa could utilize an ATV for governmental purposes, whatever that situation may be. And then the other one would be that, I got to find it up there in my notes, but it has to do with agricultural use, purposes on industrial on-premise purposes between the official sunrise and sunset of the day of operation. So it would be agricultural purposes only. So those 2 provisions would stay in the ordinance, so they would be allowed under those 2 scenarios. But staff's recommendation would be to strike the language allowing the use of ATVs with the city permit. Obviously, a lot of that is mainly due to safety concerns. But again, willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lyles. Any questions from council?
What would be the requirements for the permit? Do you just have to pay a fee, or?
Yes, currently there would be a fee attached to that, which is one of the reasons this thing came up in discussion, is we're currently looking at our fee ordinance. So it's one of the things that brought this to light as well. So, but currently, yes, they'd have to pay a fee and provide us information, insurance information, VIN number, that kind of thing, I think.
And
But
the
that's
golf cart ordinance requires seat belts, turn signals, and insurance.
Basically just like a regular vehicle,
Yeah.
essentially.
And
then
lights, brake lights, everything.
Is there an
And
age requirement?
16.
16?
Yeah.
Is that going to be also for the ATVs as well?
Well, we're not going to
We're
have
talking
one.
about taking
Right, we're trying
Oh,
to.
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
If
Talking about golf carts, and then I got
Yeah,
confused.
if council elects to not strike the language and still allow the use of ATVs, then yes, they'd have to be 16 years of age, have a valid driver's license, provide proof of insurance.
Okay.
Yep.
So my question is I realized when the golf cart permit came about, I mean, we actually publicized that out, put it out there in newsletters, stuff like that. Was the ATV ordinance in place before the golf cart one, number one?
Yes, it was.
And did we advertise that or tell the public that this was going to be that way? Because a lot of people probably haven't got permits because they didn't know they could.
Right. Yeah, we did not.
Okay.
Again, based off the conversations at the time, council had no
Understand.
desire to, so we didn't advertise that.
Understand.
So ultimately, this is a code cleanup. Gotcha. Any other questions? I will open up the public hearing if you'd like to speak on ATVs on the street. I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? Okay. Anything else from staff? We will take a 5-minute break real quick, give everyone a chance to stretch their legs and use the restroom. All right, second reading of ordinances. First one, Council Bill 2023-34.
Second reading Council Bill number 2023-34, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa suspending the operation of sections 22-48A and 22-312A of the Nixa City Code for the purpose of waiving certain fees related to municipal utility service. Presenting is Finance Director Jennifer Evans.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, this bill was first presented to you at the last council meeting. To deal with the ongoing issues that we've had with our conversion, with our new utility billing software, I was hopeful that the second run of cycle 1 bills would have gone more smoothly than it has. Unfortunately, we are behind again, about 7 days late on our billing. Additionally, we were behind on the reads, which added additional days to the bill cycle. So some customers have as many as 42 days on their bill as opposed to the general 30 to 33, resulting in higher bills and in a different due date. And so this, the original bill was set to expire on September 5th. So there is a substitute bill in front of you to extend the due date on the bills to the 30th, and then extend the waiver of the disconnection to September 8th, because the disconnect date was pushed 2 days to the 7th. So that's basically what's changed and what the substitute bill is about. And so, as I said, I was hopeful that we would have gotten a little bit more worked out with this second run of cycle 1 bills, and unfortunately just one thing after another just put us behind day after day. We, at this moment, are back on track. So hopefully, cycle 2 will be a little bit smoother. And we do have a plan going forward to try to get out ahead of some of this. Some of this is just beyond our control, beyond what we could anticipate to try to get out ahead of. And so I come to you very apologetic, and just know that staff is working very, very hard. I know that you guys get chewed on a lot within your customers, and we are doing our best. So that's the bill in front of you. It would require an amendment to the original ordinance, and then the passage of this substitute bill.
Since we will be working with members of the community that might not be able to afford the 42-day or 43-day billing cycle, where are we at as far as voicemails, emails, and all that? Because I would assume that number is probably going to go up again.
Right. So as of this afternoon, I put forth the expectation to the staff, all voicemails will be returned by the end of the business day. If we get any beyond the business day, they are to be returned before noon the next day. So when I left at 4 o'clock, I think they had 6 voicemails to return. So the expectation was to get those done before the end of the business day. And that's all we've got. We've got the phone set up to where people can hold in a queue. So they can hold if they want to. If they hold for 10 minutes, then they have the option of leaving a voicemail. The problem with the voicemail is if you leave it immediately, then we get too far behind. We don't have enough staff to, answer 20 voicemails. We just don't have the staff to do it. So the thought is, let's let people have the choice to hold if they want to. So that's how we've been handling it, and it seemed to have worked.
Okay.
So, and we're caught up on emails, online applications. As of this morning, we were caught up through August 5th on email returns. But, so we are getting caught up. That was part of the problem. We got so far behind.
Yep.
To get caught up, then regular work was falling through the cracks. And so we're we're fully staffed now. Our last staff member started today in the office. We have another meter reader starting next week. So fingers crossed. We are getting over this hump. So I appreciate your patience.
And once, assuming this is approved tonight, and this may be more directed towards Mr. Douglas, but what's our communications plan to notify the public that we will be willing to work with them on their bills. This is what we're doing. I mean, I know a Facebook post is good, but maybe more than one, maybe.
So we do have the ability to pull out just those Cycle 1 customers in an email. So we did email them and let them know this is what's going on. We do have policies and procedures in place to let people make payments. So we do have payment plans available. And obviously for waiving disconnects, we're not going to disconnect anyone's service.
Yep.
And the good news is their next bill will be much shorter. It'll only have 20-some days on it. So hopefully if they lengthen out both of them, it'll balance out.
And Mr. Douglas, I know this is probably an impossible question, but what have you found as far as reaching the public works the best for us? I mean, because I know there's not a perfect avenue, because you can post it on Facebook and someone may not see it.
So depending on the message, there's no perfect formula to get a message to every person in the target audience. So we kind of have to look at what the message is and who the target audience is and try to use multiple tools to try to reach those folks. The idea is to wait until you guys have voted tonight to know what the policy is going to be. That way we can know what the message is. And obviously, we always are taking guidance from the city administration and the finance department and utility billing as far as what they believe their needs are, as far as what needs to be communicated. And they kind of dictate to me what the message needs to be. I'll draft things, get it back to them. They approve that, and then that's the message that we send out. As far as the tactic of how we send that out, a message like this about what the new due date is going to be and what the disconnect date is going to be and the availability of payment plans and things like that, that can be sent out via emails to customers, but not every customer has an email on file, so that's not going to reach everybody. So then we have to wait till the next billing cycle. We can put a message on the back of the bill newsletters. That reaches folks that don't get electronic communications or don't check email, don't look at social media. And then you can also do social media posts that catches some people that maybe they don't open their mail, they don't really open their email, but maybe they're on social media. But there's not really a foolproof plan besides sending a mailer where you're paying for an additional postcard or something like that. That really calls much more attention to itself because it stands out more than flipping over to the backside of your bill. And a much greater additional cost to the city to send each one of those and doing a mailer that goes to every address. That's the most surefire way to know that every address that we're serving is getting the message. We can say, hey, we've done the absolute most we can to reach those customers, but then there's also a delay with mail pieces.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Douglas.
I have a couple questions. So I missed the last meeting as far as this goes, but what I'm looking at here is saying that originally the proposal was to delay it till September 5th as far as the show, but now we're only looking to add 3 days.
Right,
to it?
because we were thinking that the 5th would be more than enough time. The disconnect date was before that for cycle 1.
Okay.
So with the bills going out 7 days late, the disconnect date is now the 7th, which is beyond the original date of the 5th. And we want to be able to waive disconnects because it's it's the whole issue of this conversion and the problems that we've had with it as to why it's not the customer's fault. So we're trying to make up for it.
If we were 7 days late, but we're only adding 3 days to the disconnect, that was my question.
Well, because it's Labor Day weekend, the 5th is the Tuesday after that.
Okay. And was all customers, it was just the people that the 20th,
Just
right?
in cycle 1.
So when Drew's talking about a mailer out, it would only be those customers,
Right,
correct?
and that's sometimes part of the communications issue that we don't want to confuse customers because this doesn't affect everyone. Cycle 2 customers, we were able to keep on track with them. And we will be able to with the second billing of cycle 2 as well. So if you do a blast notification, it confuses customers who this doesn't
I
apply
just want
to.
to make sure we're just going to target the ones that were
Mhm.
Yep.
affected.
Yep. All right. Any other questions? All right. I will open up the public hearing on this one if you'd like to speak. I will close the public hearing. Is there any other questions from council? So I will accept a motion for the substitute Council Bill 2023-34.
I'll make the motion. Second.
And a first by Mr. Ogden, a second by Mr. Vest. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Now I will accept a motion for approval of Council Bill 2023-34 as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Got a first by Mr. Peterson, second by Ms. Graham. Roll call, please.
Matt Ogden,
Yes.
Sean Lucas,
Yes.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Darlene Graham.
Yes.
Zern Vest,
Yes.
Kelly Morris.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Council Bill 2023-35.
Second reading Council Bill number 2023-35, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending Chapter 22, Article 1, Section 22-1 of the Nixa City Code for the purpose of establishing a method to allow certain utility connections outside of the city limits. Presenting is Assistant City Administrator and Public Works Director Doug Colvin.
Mayor and council, we spoke about this at the first reading at your last meeting in July. Other than customers already receiving service outside the city limits due to the purchase of the newly acquired water and sewer systems, current city code has no mechanism for us to extend utility service to anyone else outside the city. So in other words, someone that would be developing a piece of property next to one of those systems, we don't have an avenue to do that at this time. This council bill changes that. In Chapter 22, Article 1, Section 22.1, it would allow us to extend utility services under certain conditions. The changes that are proposed are on line 75 through 103 of the bill draft that you have. And what it says in a nutshell is that we would serve that, we could serve those customers with a future consent to annex. If they would do that, then we can go ahead and serve them. The other areas of city code, such as making sure they meet our requirements like we would inside the city, that pretty well is covered through what ordinances we already have, so we're okay there. This proposed change is somewhat different than when we worked on this exact bill a year or so ago, where we allowed those customers to be served because we purchased, and then we also allowed for them to receive the inside city rate if they signed a consent to annex. That's because they were captive and basically we purchased it and they were captive at the time. The changes tonight don't do that. In other words, we're not extending that outside of that original area, but it'll remain the same in the original area, but in the new areas, it'll still be the outside city rate. So I'm available for any additional questions. It is staff's recommendation to adopt this. We do have a couple of folks that have already reached out to us that are looking for some extensions, and they're right next to, they're ready to go, so.
Thank you, Mr. Colvin. Any questions for Mr. Colvin? All right.
So if they're not willing to give us that future annexation, we will not allow them to use, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else? We'll open up the public hearing if you'd like to speak on this. You good? I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? Anything else from staff? I will accept the motion.
So made.
Second.
First by Mr. Lucas, second by Mr. Ogden. Roll call, please.
Sean Lucas,
Yes.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Darlene Graham,
Yes.
Zern Vest,
Yes.
Kelly Morris,
Yes.
Matt Ogden.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the resolution section. Resolution 2023-36.
Resolution number 2023-36, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa accepting the bid of Masters Plumbing for the 1111 restroom expansion, PW 2023-01 project, and authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract for the same. Presenting is Assistant Public Works Director Travis Cossey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This mic is not on. There we go. This is a resolution awarding a contract for a restroom expansion at our 1111 Public Works facility. This is the second in a series of restroom expansions that has been budgeted for ADA compliance and an increase in the number of facilities available for our staff. The first one is being completed this year at our 1010 facility. This is the second part of that expansion to allow for additional restrooms and ADA compliance at our 1111 facility. This was budgeted as a CIP project this year for $175,000. We did receive a bid from Masters Plumbing that came in under budget at $141,700, which was a savings of $33,000 over what was budgeted. So we have visited with our architect of record, Mr. Nate Rapp, who has worked with Masters Plumbing in the past and gave them a good recommendation. So staff has forwarded that recommendation to you for approval of the contract.
Any questions for Mr. Cossey? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing? All right. We will open up the public hearing if you'd like to speak on this. We will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? Anything else from staff? I will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
First by Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Ogden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution 2023-37.
Resolution number 2023-37, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa authorizing the city administrator to solicit proposals for mailing services for the Utility Billing Division of the Finance Department. Presenting is Finance Director Jennifer Evans.
Well, this is the first of the new purchasing code where we present to you the RFP process so that if there's any amendments that you would like to make to that before we let the bid, that this would be the time that you would voice those changes. So what this is what you had in your packet was the RFP for mailing services. We've had the same mailer since 2019 for utility bills. And it's coming up on 5 years, so we feel time to solicit bids for this service. Currently, we upload a file, and it takes about a day for them to, whatever it is that they do, to get it configured. They send it back to us for a proof. Then it takes another day or two for them to print it and mail it. Our current service is based out of Texas. So I think there are other services that are around that are closer to us that might cut down on the time it takes for the bill to get to the customer. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
With the new ERP system, is that going to make this a easier process for someone to do that?
Well, one element it does do, one of the things that the current mailer system does is apply the CAS certified addresses, which verifies the address is a valid mailing address, and the new system that we have does that. So that would possibly be one step that we wouldn't have to have with a mailing service anymore, that our new BSNA system does that.
With them on contract or whoever we decide to go with, we could use them for any type of mailer, correct?
Yeah,
Not
that's part of
just
the
for-
RFP, that
okay.
if we had any additional mailers, that they would be available to help configure that and get that out for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Another question with the ERP system when it relates to billing for utilities. Do we have the option now to go in and go paperless, where we don't get a
Yes.
paper bill?
Mhm.
Have we had many people select that option?
Yes, quite a few.
So we'll definitely probably see our number of bills
Hopefully,
going out with us.
that's the goal.
Okay.
Perfect. Any other questions? Thank you. All right, I will open up the public hearing on this. I will close the public hearing. Any other questions from council? Anything else from staff? I will accept the motion.
So made.
I'll second.
Oh, you got one.
I-
Did you get that? Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Last one, Resolution 2023-38.
Resolution number 2023-38, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa consenting to the mayor's appointment of several members to the Board of Directors of the Public Building Corporation of the City of Nixa, Missouri. Presenting is City Administrator Jimmy Lex.
Mayor, Council, the Public Building Corporation, or as PBC as they're often referred to, is a nonprofit organization that was formed in 1989. In essence, they were formed to establish, promote, acquire, develop, construct, own, operate, maintain, and lease facilities in Nixa. Currently, our city hall, specifically the expansion that was done and the expansion that was done at the police department, for example, are both done under the PBC and are financed through the PBC, and then we make that payment. Currently, the utility building is also under the PBC, although we don't currently have any financing that's attached to, but that land and building is currently technically owned by the PBC. And a step further, the PBC is managed by a board of directors, and those board of directors are currently expired, and we have to have them registered with the state of Missouri by the end of August. I've reached out to some of the current directors, and we'd have two of those that have offered to continue to serve on the board. Those are Todd Gardner and Clayton Hines. That leaves us, because their bylaws say that they need 9 members, or articles of corporation say they need 9 members on the PBC board. So I reached out to multiple people in conjunction with Mayor Giddens, and used recommendations through the mayor as well, and in proposing the following members for recommendation to be put on the board of directors for the PBC. Those members are Kendall Dingus, Noah Chavez, Andrea Long, Justin Orff, David Larson, Kyra Horn, and Kevin Alberry, along with the 2 existing members, Todd Gardner and Clayton Hines. I do ask that council adopt the resolution appointing those members to that board of directors. As I mentioned earlier, the utility billing department and land is currently under the PBC. I do need to get that board back together within the next couple of months and potentially look at transferring those properties back to the city so that we can move forward with our plans on establishing the area for the new police department in the future. So this is just kind of that first step in that process. So I will be calling that board together in the next couple of months to conduct some business. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Just so you guys have an understanding of how I came up with the names with Mr. Lyles. Most of these people have served on some board in some fashion, whether it was the Home Rule Charter Review Board or City Council in the past or Planning and Zoning. And they have all reached out to me at times saying that they wanted to be involved in other things. Granted, this is a pretty small one because they might meet 2 times in the next 5 years. But I think these are people who have a good understanding, they want to be involved, and will do what's right. So that's how we came up with them. Any questions for Mr. Lyles?
How do the term limits come? Like 6, 4, and 2?
Yeah, there are all the term limits are 6-year terms. According to the Articles of Incorporation,
The Articles of Incorporation have a stagger.
Does that include a continuation of the board, or is that a first time? Because the board was originally put into place. So I'm asking because this came up while I was off, so I do apologize. This came up Friday while I was out of the office. I
So
didn't get a chance.
the stagger had to have been established at the beginning when the board was constructed.
Correct.
We don't have any records of who was appointed to what seat when and how that stagger was established in the beginning. So we've opted to just reestablish the stagger with this appointment.
Okay. So whenever Mr. Alberry is done in 2 years, he can re-up for 6 years, and then they don't all fall
Yes.
off at the same time?
This is just to reestablish the
Fair enough.
stagger, which should have been established in 1989.
Gotcha.
Which I assume it was, we just don't have any information on who was appointed and.
We won't be scrambling to find 7 new people within a week, like we did this year. Perfect. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions? All right, I will open up the public hearing. I will close the public hearing. Any other questions from council? Anything else from staff? I will accept the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
First by Ms. Graham, second by Mr. Peterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? I did want to give a huge thank you to Public Works for all of their work during the storm. That's huge. I think there was some upset people until they saw what was going on in other communities. Our guys really stepped up from every department within the city. Bless you. Stepped up and really took care of everyone and took care of the city, and everyone who came in from mutual aid. That was just pretty impressive. So thank you guys so much. Anything else from council? Anything else from staff?
I'll give you one quick update. The Rotary Park playground installation will begin tomorrow, which is ahead of schedule. They got done with a previous project and asked if they could come a little early. So equipment was removed last week, so we were set and ready for them, but they're around a week early. So they'll be getting started with that tomorrow, and you'll see some work over there.
Awesome.
A government job ahead of schedule. This is glorious.
Don't jinx it.
We should end it on that note.
Yes.
Anything else? Fair enough. Meeting adjourned.